Podcast Network.
The champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome. It's not Sunday night. It's Monday night. It is fight night, though. And we are here on A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home with the Danny Batten Fight Show, episode number 115, powered by Violent Money. Please do go check out Violent Money TV on YouTube. They actually dropped my interview with Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson on their channel today, so you can check that out. And they got plenty of quality content on there. You can visit the Violent Money website and their store, violentmoney.co.uk, for lots of top apparel and the like. And you get 20% off as well if you use the code ACE20, 20% off on all their products. And of course, do check out the Violent Money Academy. You can check them on social media and like. It's the first smart gym in the UK, and we will have a virtual tour of that soon, as well as more information to follow shortly. So do look out for that. And as always, we'll be kicking off the show with an exclusive interview with another top name from combat sports. We are live on YouTube and Twitter tonight, no Facebook. And eventually, probably from next week, we're only going to do it live on YouTube. So please do check that out. But if you prefer your podcast in audio form, this show and all the other series we do on the channel are available via the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first All Sports Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at sport-social.co.uk. But joining me, as ever, first and foremost, he is the former Cage Warriors champion and the UK MMA legend, Mr. Danny Batten. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Sorry, listeners, I'm a very happy Danny. Very happy.
You've had a very productive weekend, which we will most definitely talk about. But our guest this evening is a part of the MTK Global stable. He also a Welsh champion boxer. It is Mr. Kieran Gethin. How are you, mate?
How are you guys? Yeah, I'm grand.
Good, man. Looking forward to having a quick chat. So Kieran's going to join us for about half hour or so for a chat about boxing and such. And then we're going to have a second half. It's going to be MMA heavy this week. No Ben Doherty because he's training, because it's a Monday night. So it's everyone's different schedule. But we got lots and lots to talk about. But I'm more than happy to start with our guest this evening. Kieran, for people who don't know, kind of tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into boxing, the start of your career and all that. Basically, how you got into combat sports, I suppose, and a little bit of a introduction, should we say?
Yeah, so I started boxing when I was 12. I've been doing it for about 15 years now. My father was a boxer, his father, and I think his father again. So it's been in the family for a long time. In fact, as long as Queensberry rules have been about, we've had the gloves on. So that's a nice trait to have in the family. I started boxing properly about 4 or 5, just going down the gym, knocking the bags around with my father and stuff in his old professional gym. And then I never really showed any inclination towards it and didn't really enjoy it. And my brother went down the local gym and was getting a bit of trouble down there with some travelling boys. And me being a big brother, thought I could go in and do a job. And really, I was a little short, fat kid. I couldn't have done much, but I stuck it out. I kept going. In fact, I got dumped on the Valentine's Day, and I jumped. Came down the following day, so I felt like I needed to do a bit to get the girls, I think. But yeah, it was not a decision I've regretted.
Indeed, excellent stuff. So it sounds like boxing runs in the family deep. Then it sounds like it's the family game in many respects.
Yeah, the old man was a national champion 6 times in the amateurs. He had over 180 fights altogether. He had a good few pro fights as well. His father was champion in the army, and like you say, his father was a professional as well. So we've all done a bit.
So is there ever a chance that you might do something different?
I'm quite inclined to keep my fingers in as many pies as possible, but it's really the opportunities I've had have been from my profile that I've gained from boxing and the opportunities the boxing's granted me. As you guys know, combat sports is not something you take in lightly. It's something you go wholehearted in, and I've probably taken that onto other projects in my life as well.
I like it. Do you remember the moment, or was there a particular fight or a point where it was like it went from sort of like a hobby or an interest to I'm going to do this and I'm going to pursue it as a career and I'm going to go all out? Do you remember when that sort of change happened, or was it just always generally there?
So I enjoyed it enough to carry on going because it was something I think a lot of fighters have got an internal thing where they need appreciation from others. I think all fighters have got it. You're looking externally for the word escapes me, but you need that appreciation from outside. So when I won a national title in my 5th fight, from there I was getting plaudits and the attention. You know what I mean? The attention-seeking attitude. That's what I was looking for. I think all fighters have got that. And yeah, I was getting that attention and getting the plaudits from doing good things in the ring. And I carried on with it. I enjoyed it as much as as any young kid would when they're not going out with their buddies and things like that. But when I was 16, I moved up to Birmingham for an apprenticeship between Birmingham and Leeds for about 2 years. So I really feel like I coasted then. But when I came back at 18, I finished my apprenticeship and I was fully qualified. And I said I'm gonna give boxing a good go. I got in the long list for the Commonwealth Games and stuff. They ended up sending an Olympian instead of me, so there's not really any arguments there. But it encouraged me enough to want to carry on going with it. And after winning the senior title, it seemed like the obvious thing really was to turn pro. I don't think I was good enough cut in the amateur scene to get into the GB squad. Looking back in retrospect, I probably could have maybe won a British title as a senior, which my amateur coach did advise me to stay until I was like 23 and then turn over. But life seems so short when you're 21. You think those numbers just tick by, but it's I've had an enjoyable time so far.
Indeed. Danny, Kieran there mentioned about fighters. They like the appreciation of others. Obviously, being an ex-fighter yourself, and of course a coach of a current world champion, among others. Can you see that logic?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
If you remember, love and a bit of attention.
Yeah, absolutely. If you remember on our first podcast, one of the things that I did say was that I loved all the attention that comes with it, and not all just greedily for myself. I loved it because family and friends got together to come and support me, and obviously when things are going well and you're getting the victory, it's even more poignant when you finish and go into the crowd, right? I don't know, you just love being the big cheese.
Yeah, and I can see it just from all the different fighters I've spoken to and the coaches and all the different things. You can see it, and of course, look, you say it about fighters, but I think you could say it about anything, which kind of any form of entertainment, whether it's TV, sport, even stuff like doing YouTube and the channels and stuff. Like, I enjoy the attention that I get off that.
Rock stars, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like you get like a little window into it, and it's difficult to say it's not enjoyable on a very small scale. But like I am interested, Kieran, in like what you've got planned coming up. I know you were hoping that you might have some news to tell us tonight, but I know you said that wasn't going to be the case. But we'll keep it. We'll get it eventually. But
skate
in
around
terms
a bit.
of,
Skate around it.
like where do you want to go in the next year or so?
So I got my son's being born, my third child. My son's being born in the start of June. So I've said to the managers and stuff, if a fight date comes up before the middle of May, I'm on it 100%. If it's after that, you're probably looking more September, October time. But I think the obvious one for me now is another title. I had 2 years off with an injury. I came back and had a 4-rounder, and I've had a 6-rounder, which was tougher than we wanted it to be. But you don't always want the easy ones. So the obvious one for me personally is a title fight next. And I've been offered opportunities on bigger bills and things like that, but it's really only the belts that get me interested. I'm not too asked about any money or profile or anything. I'm happy with the profile and stuff I've got now. If I was, any more well known, it'd probably annoy me. But I just want more belts, and that is the next step for me. Another title.
The belt collector. He's just collecting them, and more. And funny enough, like I spoke to Jay Munn in the studio a couple of weeks back, which is out on Tuesday actually, so people check out that. But he was like saying very similar things to you, but obviously like because you're in that sort of earlier stage of your pro career, you're kind of like you're building up the fights and you're doing more and more. But obviously you're a bit further along, and you're looking at titles and things like that. One of the things that Jay said to me was, as you're doing longer fights and more rounds, he wants to have proper wars with opponents. Like that's an ambition of his is to have out and out wars. Is that something which like you would enjoy doing, or do you just looking to get in, get out, beat your opponent, and be done with it?
Yeah, I've won a fight of the year with Tony Dixon. That was a great one to be involved with. I'd love to get another one. I think I was in the running for another one with my next title fight after that. But boxing ain't all about wars, is it? You want to come out still looking handsome with your brains intact, man. Jay's just young and full of vigor, man. when he gets to the other end of 25, you'll know that he should just box and win a fight.
It's interesting. So, would you rather win a 12-round title fight for like a world title or whatever, 12 rounds of just toe-to-toe, a bloody war with whoever, and win it on points, but it's like an all-time classic? Or would you rather go in and get the early stoppage, first couple of rounds, KO, spectacular fashion?
I've never KO'd anyone in spectacular fashion, so it'd be nice to experience that. But it's pretty hard to say. If you're thinking about plaudits and stuff, you probably won the 12-round, the knockabout. But if you're thinking about the colour of your blood afterwards, you don't really want a 12-round fight.
No.
So
get in and get out.
I think you got to take it as it comes out. It depends on the opponent as well. If I was fighting a lightweight, I might go for the 12-rounder. Light middleweight, I'm gonna be going for the knockout in a couple of rounds.
Have you got like a dream opponent, like alive, dead, or anything? Just anyone who you look back, or even on the current scene, who you're like, I would love to have or beat, or maybe in the future be able to fight like.
Yeah, I always think it'd be amazing to see like the hype and stuff you'd add around like a Sugar Ray Robinson, you know what I mean? If you had a fight like that and you were involved in like a LaMotta Robinson type of scrap, that would be amazing. But no, when it comes to fingering people, I'm not too bothered by that. It's the belts I want,
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Like, so there's so you want to sort of, because you get asked as soon as you win a fight, and it's like the first question, who do you want to fight next, or who do you want to call out? And sometimes I do think like maybe these fighters just want to enjoy the victory they've just had, rather than already thinking about the next thing. But such is life, I suppose. Are you one
I
to
think
call
Danny's
out people?
probably going to agree with me on this. You don't really you don't settle on when you've won. You're instantly thinking about what's coming next anyway. It's not you can enjoy the victory. You think, oh great, I can have a Peroni after it, but you immediately after you're thinking, well, I'm going to be back in the gym Monday, and I'm going to be hitting those bags out fitter than ever, and then Monday comes and you're still on the cheeseburgers. But it's a hard one really, because the boxers are always going to be their own hype man, and they have to be. And I'm not so much sure about the MMA boys. I haven't had much to do with it, but when it comes to how I feel after a fight, instantly I do have in my mind. I've talked about who I wanted to fight straight after a fight before, but apparently being truthful gets you upsetting people, so I tend not to say any names anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like in this day and age with social media and with YouTube and Facebook and all these different, and Instagram and like all these different video things, and you've got shows like this, there's so many different podcasts and shows around. Like I do think the clever fighters are the ones who get their name out there, and they ultimately you can build your own profile. And the example I use is actually the guy who's fighting Chris Jenkins in a few weeks now, like Florian Marquez. I think he's a very good fighter, and but he's built up a following that doesn't quite align with where he is in his career, if that makes sense. And that's not a criticism of him, by the way. That's it's a good thing that he's been able to do that. Is that something the fighters are going to be aware of?
Yeah, it's something the managers and the promoters really need to take care of a bit more with the fighters. Self-promotion is all well and good, but you only get one Muhammad Ali per generation, really. You got McGregor with the way he brought it to MMA, and Mayweather, he's done it a different way. I've always tried to be respectful. However people want to take that, they can. But my words are on videos. I'm never derogatory towards anybody, because I don't feel I have to be. I'm happy enough a man in myself. Doing what I do, you know what I mean?
How do you feel, Kieran, though, when someone maybe gets a bit personal with you? Does that have an effect then?
But am I allowed to swear on you?
Yeah, you say what you want, man.
Right.
Go on,
so someone called me a cunt on Twitter, right? And it really pissed me off, because when you call someone a name, right, it just flows out your mouth. You just say it, right? He had to type those words. You know what I mean? He had to put the effort in, and he thought about calling me a cunt, and that really pissed me off at it. My friends call me a daily. That doesn't, it's water off duck's back. But things like that annoy me, because they don't know who I am. They see the interviews. They think they know things about me. Honestly, I'm a kind, respectful person. I do loads of or try to do as much as I can in my community. I hire people from the local community. I've hired people from boxing clubs and stuff to work for me. I don't look for any sort of aggro off anyone. The only time I will get irate or something is when I'm in a debate with something and I think they're wrong. That's the only time I will get irate at anyone. But if people got to take it, people got to take So if you're in the public image and or public eye, then you've just got to. Joe Rogan, I listen to a lot of Rogan, and what does he say? He drops and then deletes the comments or whatever. He doesn't read any of them. So I think you've got to take that sort of attitude with it. Because I know people say shit behind my back all the time and talk about me in the WhatsApp groups, but who else are they going to talk about?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because like on one side, if people are talking about you, then it's a good thing, isn't it? Because that means that you're kind of doing something right. Yeah. But then on the other hand, I don't know what you're like, but like with me, like I'd love to show you some of the messages I get. And it's like you just said something which kind of hit home with me a bit, where you said they had to take the time to write it out. And like sometimes like I get these messages and like I just think you've taken the time to type that paragraph out, like just to be negative.
100%.
And it's just like
I told my friends I must have made it last year, because I had my first hate page. I had my first hate page on Instagram. They were added all my. They got taken down within like a couple of hours because there was loads of people reporting and stuff. But I said to my mates, then I knew that I'd made it then.
Yeah, that's it. And when you've got a whole page dedicated to people like slagging you off and that, you know you've made it, as it were. I got a message having a go at me because I had a ponytail, like I had shoulder like hair down my back for like years, and I had it cut, and I donated the hair to charity, like to make wigs for kids with cancer, and I raised money with it to shave my head to get, and the money from that went to a mental health charity. So two things that you'd think, like, you can't criticize that.
Good person, isn't he? It was a nice guy doing that.
Kids with cancer and mental health, like, there's no negative there, surely. And this guy sent me like a massive long message on Twitter saying how I was attention seeking and all this thing. And I was like, Jesus Christ, mate. I just sent him a message back saying, I really hope you're all right. Just like, just if you need anything, give me a shout sort of thing. Yeah, Jesus. Because I was just like, that's taken you like 20 minutes to write. And yeah, it's weird. It's social media.
Thinking about that when he's lying in bed. Thinking about you when he's lying in his bed.
Yeah, like he's had to like he's like proper had to put effort into it, and it's just shocking. I've got a question from you, from the legendary Experience Real Joe Robbins. Big up him. Check out his stuff. Fantastic podcast. Check out my episode with him as well, and Kieran's episode. But he says, Kieran lad, when's your podcast coming out?
I wanted to do it right. Me and him recorded one, and it would have been the very first one, but it isn't the right time for me. So when I want to do a podcast. So I've pushed it back a few years on the timeline, but it will come out. It will be good when it does. There
we go. That's good stuff. I got a lot of time for Joe. He's a really good guy. I so much time for him. I got my Experience Real t-shirt on, but I haven't got on today. Shock. Shame. So mate, in terms of opponents going forwards, I know like you probably can't sort of say anything in terms of what might be in the works. So did you say you called someone out after was that your most recent fight, or was that a few fights ago?
No, I've asked for opponents straight after fights. Pardon?
Did you upset someone? Did you, with your honesty?
In the past, I have, yeah. And being particularly nasty about it, it was quite cordial. I just said I wanted to fight him, and it turned into a bit of bad blood or whatever. But it is what it is. I've asked for the fight since and all, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And fair enough, shit happens. But there's talks now about that maybe at like middleweight, but the preferable weight for me is going to be welterweight going forward. But if there's decent opportunities at any weight, I'd be up for it. Like I say, it's the belts for me, not the people.
I like that that thought process. What weight do you walk around at?
Too heavy.
How much do you cut?
Too
much.
My championship weight's 10 stone, but like I say, I'm going to be moving up to welter or there are opportunities like middleweight look at as well, but welterweight really for the high level stuff.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Do you like Welsh combat sports at the moment? I really think is on like the brink of something really special in boxing and in MMA. Like I think 100%. The next couple of years could be something truly special. And like one thing which kind of struck me when over the last couple of weeks, where I've been kind of looking into you a bit, and I was looking into Jay before, is like both of you are quite like you're very both of you are confident in your abilities to be the best, to get titles. Obviously in your case you've got titles already and you want more, and in his case he's kind of building up towards that. Both confident in your opinion, in your abilities, but also both kind of quite, what's the word? Like almost like self-deprecating, or quite modest with it as well. Quite genuine people, quite, just not
I got to be honest. I like Jay a lot. He's the type of guy who normally I probably wouldn't get along with. He's super popular, and he's got a nickname like the Roos Rhino. But
Yeah.
when I sit and talk to him, he's a nice guy. He's so I can see why you can see that similarity in us. But not all fighters, especially Welsh fighters are like us. A lot of them are, I think, have to be very pig-headed. It's just, I think you've got the difference between the realists and the ones who keep punching higher than they weight. And there's some good examples out there of people who've started at nothing and went on to do fantastic, and then there's examples of a fantastic Olympian, some of the best boxers Wales have ever produced, and fallen short of what they expected as a pro. So everyone's different in their own mental attitude, and I'm sure Danny can speak for that. He'll have been around fighters who are absolute arseholes and still the best that they've been in with. And then you've got some people who are, like you say, very self-deprecating and understand their flaws, but are probably better for it again. So there's a balance there to be found.
Yeah, like you say, everyone's different, and they at the end of the day as well. Like human beings, just predominantly, everybody is different. Everybody reacts differently to different things. It's just the way of the world, and it's the way people are. I think.
I was talking about this today because I was doing an interview for teaching. I'm going into doing teaching in some of the local schools, like teaching assistant stuff. And we were talking about the different groups of children you're going to be dealing with, like different behavioral classes, and how some kids you're going to be able to have deep conversations with and really try and guide, and then others you've got to be really generalized and sort of pass on to other people. So the nuance in people is fantastic, really, because that's what makes us all special, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. And I think I'm really interested to see where Welsh boxing goes, like over the next couple of years, because like the people who I've spoken to as well, they say like there's a good batch of boxers now, like yourself and Jay, and then there's others as well, but then there's also another batch of younger fighters coming through who their coaches and everyone have got such high hopes for, but people don't know anything about them yet. They're obviously, some of them are still kids, some of them are very early in their amateur careers and that. Like, are you excited for Welsh boxing in terms of what the future holds?
Yeah, 100%. So my brother is one of the national coaches, and there's a good handful of people on there who are not just top in the Welsh team, they're top in the GB team as well. So from the amateur scene, there's loads there's plenty of potential there. I'm starting an amateur club in Abergavenny now, and that's something I'm really looking forward to, because there's, like you say, so much potential out there. We've got stars like Joshua and Canelo, and they're inspiring different people. And even on the local scene, you've got, like, Elise Selby was the longest reigning world champion in Britain for a few years ago, for 5 or 6 years. If he's inspiring people, you're only really seeing that payoff now. You know what I mean? If he was doing that 5 years ago, you're only going to see the payoff in the next couple of years. And like you say, you've got people that are high up there now. You've got Gavin Gwynn, you've got all these names that have got titles, Joe Cordina, like top boys, like. And then you've got hopefully myself and stuff that can do undercards and things like that. These fighters that hopefully overlap again, and then you've got more amateurs and things that are coming up behind. So I'm hoping that we get to see the best of that in the next few years, as long as the investment's there in the country. And the sad thing about Wales is we're not economically as well off as the rest of the country, hence why we probably don't have as many big shows. But it's something that hopefully is going to change in the next decade or so.
Yeah, I wish we had a conversation recently, actually, I forget who it was with, about just the general funding into martial arts and boxing, combat sports from the government, whether it's the UK government or the Welsh government. Like, it's unfortunate in many ways that the funding isn't there to encourage more kids to do it, because and not just the kids, but like, professionals and because the funding compared to other sports, compared to combat sports, is minuscule. Like, the difference is massive, and I just think
professional sport is what it says, and it's professional sport.
Yeah.
You've got to take the rough with the smooth with that. You start a business, and the price of wood goes up, and then you're making less money. It's case of what happens. But on the amateur side, there's never been more funding than there is now, and they really are trying to put good infrastructure in. There's complaints that can be made, but at the end of the day, no one else is running the top of it. So you've got to try and understand that you're heading in the right direction. When I started, you were buying your national vest. When I started boxing, you had to, you know what I mean. When I finished, I had a full wardrobe of kit as a team captain. I'd been on a bunch of trips that I didn't pay a penny for, and I got to see a load of Europe that I would never have seen. So, and even now, there's financial incentives for these amateurs to stay on, and to win tournaments as well, which is it's going the right way.
Yeah, so you've seen the change then, like literally from sort of earlier on in your career to now.
My dad boxed for Wales 16 times. He didn't have one national vest because I think he'd given 2 or 3 away, and so many others got damaged or whatever, 20, 30 years is a long time. But he was never given kits or anything like that, never given a tracksuit. And like I said, I got a box full of stuff in the house that I was just waiting to be framed. So this even something as minuscule as that is night and day compared to the last 50 years,
Yeah, I remember like back in 90s now when I was playing sports for like South Wales or for Glamorgan and County and stuff, and you had to buy everything. Like there was no we used to go on tours and stuff, and you were selected because it was representative, sport, so it was a big thing for you, but also then you'd have to pay hundreds of pounds for kit and to go on tours and tournaments and stuff, which I was a kid, I didn't pay it, but like my parents, it was a big strain on them, but they were also thing.
This is why fighting and combat sports in general is so popular with areas like ours, and why we've produced 2 of the best British boxers there's ever been in Carl Zaghi and Jimmy Wilde, is because you can come from nothing if and make something yourself. You can you have a mattress in the backyard, and if you're hitting that, that can be a training session for you if it has to be. So that's the good thing about combat sports, and the way that it's on the up is that it's still fairly affordable. You've got these brands like Grants or whatever now that are charging £300 for a pair of fucking gloves. It's pathetic, but you can always buy your way into the sport cheaply. Do you know what I mean? If you go to a football team or something, you got to pay 150 quid the start of the year. You got to pay £5 a week. You got to do that. You know what I mean? So and that's every season, or not even a full year of sport, and you're paying a lot of fees there. So buying your way into any sport is hard work. I've got family who's involved in equestrianism, and it's hard work trying to get him to stay in anything like that. And the time your parents have got to go to work to let you pay, and then your parents have got to come home from work, pay the fuel to take you there. It's a time-consuming thing. Sports becoming a leisure of the wealthy rather than something for the masses. And sort of the slogan we're doing at my boxing club now is boxing for the community. It's supposed to be for everyone. It's supposed to be affordable for everyone. It breaks my heart having to charge boys £5 to come and hit my bags, like, you know what I mean? But you got to cover overhead. So there's plenty of space for improvement, but it is definitely on the up. And like you say, affordability is a big thing, and hopefully combat sports is something which is possibly why it is so popular at the moment, that it's a cheap buy-in.
Excellent. Really, that's a good way to kind of round us off, mate. Just before you go then, I got a question from Rob in the chat, and then we'll play the 1-word game. So basically, I'm going to give you a list of names from combat sports, and you just say the first thing which comes to mind when you hear that name, mate, okay? The question
I don't watch a lot of MMA.
Yeah, that's right. I'll make sure they're all boxing. I might chuck in 1 or 2 other ones. But Rob Boyle says, Kieran, Robbie Regan, or Joe Calzaghe?
Joe Calzaghe is definitely a better fighter, without a shadow of a doubt. But it was nice to see Robbie win the world title anyway, man.
Yes, I love Robbie. Absolutely love him. Right, let's 1-word game, mate. But just before we do that, obviously, thank you very much for coming on, mate. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure.
Sorry, mate.
It's all right, mate. You still there? There we are. No, it's been a pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed it. And hopefully... Oh, your sound's gone now. Someone try to phone you.
Yeah, twice in a row. Bastards.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, like I was saying to you the other day, mate. Hopefully we can get you down to the studio in Cardiff, mate, and we can do a My Story episode. But because I think that'll be really interesting as well, because you've got such a family history in boxing and stuff. I think there's be some good stories and stuff there when we got a bit more time and in person. But right, the one word game with Kieran Gethin. First name on the list is Tyson Fury.
What have I got to think of?
Just the first thing which comes to mind when you hear that name.
MTK.
Okay. Canelo Alvarez.
Mayweather, for some reason.
Eddie Hearn.
Eddie Hearn. Matchroom.
Jake Paul.
Tit.
Would you take that fight, though?
Who wouldn't? The man's got fucking money.
Gavin Gwynn.
Legend.
Joe Calzaghe.
British legend.
Chris Eubank Jr.
Fucking specimen.
Do you know that's the nicest thing anyone said about him on the show?
Yeah, I try to keep it nice. Look, I'm a nice guy.
Good to be nice. Good to be nice. Cody Davis.
Friend.
And then last two, we got Conor McGregor.
Funny.
And Lennox Lewis to round us off.
My dad. There's a good story about that one. I'll tell you about it next time.
Excellent. I look forward to that, mate. Really well. Kieran, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed that. Cheers, buddy. And we'll speak to you very soon, obviously.
Thank you
Cheers,
very much.
mate.
Good luck, buddy.
All right. Go, Kieran Gethin. Good man. I enjoyed that. It was a good little chat.
Yeah.
And we'll have some more time with Kieran anyway at a later date. I have no doubt. And I'm going to hoping to get him in the studio anyway to do an episode of My Story, because I think that'd be a good one. It'd be a good one indeed. But right there, mate, we have got lots to talk about. There's no way we're going to be able to cover everything match by match. So I think what I want to do is I want to talk a bit about Cage Warriors Friday, because obviously your fighter Jordan defended his featherweight title, and boy, oh boy, that finish was smooth. God, I really enjoyed that finish.
Yeah.
The way he hopped on his back, he was like a little frog, and it was over. But before we talk about the actual fight, I do want to talk about the difficulty. Look, first and foremost, best wishes to Paul Hughes, and hopefully he can heal up, and we could maybe see that fight at a later date or whatever happens. I want to see him back in the ring, healthy, as soon as possible. So obviously, best wishes to him. I did feel sorry for him, because you could see in the video post he put up about what had gone on, and the injury that he had suffered. You could see the heartbreak. This was a very anticipated fight between Paul Hughes and Jordan Vucenic. But what was it like for you as a camp with that change of opponent? Literally, 4 days out from a massive fight? Like, in my opinion, this was the biggest fight Cage Warriors had ever put on. And then all of a sudden, with 4 days, Jordan's got to deal with the opponent changing. So with that, Dan, did the Hughes fight fall through, and then they sort of were trying to work out another fight, or did it, by the time you found out, they sort of said Hughes is out, but you can fight Hendon?
Yeah,
was it like that, or was there a gap in the middle?
Yeah, no, there was no gap. I think probably behind the scenes they perhaps knew a day or two before and did the switch around, got it all in place, then gave Jordan a call. That's how it seems to me. Could be different. You'd have to ask Jordan on that one, because so much has gone on. I haven't had a chance to talk to him how it all happened, because everything's just been such a rush. Remember, there wasn't just Jordan, there was other fighters on the next night that I had to cover as well. It's been one hell of a time. But what a shocking phone call that was, early in the morning when I took the call, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but Hughes is out." But Hendon's in, and I think he's just about the best secondary fight that we could have hoped for to go through. So for that much, I'm really thankful and respectful towards Hendon and his camp for taking it on. People say short notice. Yes, it was short notice both for Jordan and for Hendon. You got to remember those both training to fight on the same night, so no big issue there.
He'd had a full camp, hadn't he? Because he was due to fight anyway. It's more a change of opponent, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can argue it's short notice there for Jordan. I just think saying short notice just shouldn't be in there. But it was getting bantered around. It was not short notice by any stretch. It was a short-term matchup, but they were both absolutely fully prepared, other than perhaps finalising any potential tactics that they might have put in. I mean, we kind of had to just adjust with a few things that we knew Hendon was, or we felt Hendon was strong with, try and avoid those situations. And there were a few things that each of the coaches, there was a lot of different coaches involved in Jordan's progress. We all chipped in with our observations of what we felt that he could be potentially weak with. And we have to always take into account as well that people improve. And one thing I think I saw there, I think people agree, Hendon looked very, very good, very, very dangerous. I think a lesser Hendon, a previous Hendon, going in against Jordan, perhaps would struggle to have even got out the first round. But he was showing a little bit more maturity. He was definitely showing some skill sets that were beyond perhaps the expectations of me and my camp. He did great. He did put Jordan into some potential adversity, certainly positions that were, losing on paper. So well done to him to push Jordan that far. But Jordan pulled through. He's an absolute wizard. And it's good to see some of his jiu-jitsu skills, albeit all still on the feet somehow.
Yeah, look, in my opinion, going back to the short notice thing, short notice is when someone is taking a fight without a full camp. James Hendon was due to fight, he'd had a full camp, etc., etc. So in my opinion, there was more adversity in that for Jordan than there was for James Hendon. Not saying that there was no adversity for James Hendon, of course, because he went from fighting whoever to a title fight. So there was a change. But for Jordan, he's done a whole camp preparing around fighting Paul Hughes. And James Hendon is a different opponent who provides different challenges, different problems. He's got a different technique. He's shorter. There's all sorts of different things. I thought Jordan faced a little bit of adversity, but ultimately, once he hopped on his back, it was game over. And the thing which struck me at the time is I got very excited watching it, but it was the smoothness of the transition, just how quickly the opportunity was there for him to hop on his back, but it was only there for a split second. And that split second was all Jordan needed to end the fight. And I'm going to talk about that a bit later with another fight, actually, which happened on the Saturday. But the speed at the very top level if you get that opportunity to take it and to nail it technically correct, I think sometimes people just gloss over that, the difficulty, the speed of thought, everything about it. And I just wanted to touch on that because obviously you as an ex-fighter, and you've talked about in 2022, the difference in the levels of fighters, their all-round games and things like that. How much is that? We talk about fight IQ a lot, but how much is that speed of thought a massive, I can't think of the word, but an impact on results at the top level?
I think more so than ever before. I think the difference between fighters are so on a micromanaged level. And so to jump at small opportunities and turning them into opportunities that can get to a finish is really quite something to behold. When you're tactically outsmarting or outmaneuvering another skilled individual is what martial arts is truly all about. And like you say, it was very, very smooth. And I don't think people quite realise the difficulty in trying to do a submission where you're not only relying on your own balance, jumping up on a form of a backpack up onto someone, also you're dealing with their imbalances because it ain't easy to stabilize yourself when you've got someone else's body weight on you. That body weight is moving at all times. So he had to lock it all in, stabilize himself with the position of his legs. That's why he went for the body triangle and locked his leg in behind the thigh to give him stability. And then to try to work with your arms when the balance is all off like that, that's, taking a leap of faith while doing the submission, because at any time Henry could have jumped forward, he could have jumped back, he could have done something crazy there. I mean, to me, they're panic moves, but they're panic moves that can pull off exotic, unusual wins. And, that potential and being up high on someone and using both your arms occupying to try to put on a choke, knowing you're not going to be able to break your fall, it's a little leap of faith. There's a lot of skill, there's a lot of guts in that style submission. In fact, I'd be kind of interested to see whether there is a championship win from the back. I think that may well be the first ever Cage Warriors standing rear naked choke. I'm not sure, you can't quote me on that, but it's a statistic I wouldn't mind looking into. But yeah, it was a very, very slick finish. But not only that, I think slicker was really the setup. I mean, to slip a punch, catch him in a standing arm triangle position, because it was not a submission at that stage. An arm triangle set up a situation to their switch around and pivot on to backpack the guy, was a sense of a complete timing and skill. It really was. You have to have so much sense of balance, so much sense of your opponent's potential to move. It was utterly, utterly beautiful. It really, really was. I mean, I just keep watching it back, and I shake my head in bewilderment. But it's actually funny, Jordan had this situation, but the location of both of them were different in the cage, and that was against Hughes. He actually had a standing arm triangle up against the fence, which stopped Jordan be able to access the back. But it did allow him to use it as a fixed piece to expose the ribs for some knees, and you can set up
something you've seen him doing in training, like using that
triangle. Not for a while.
Position.
Oh yeah, he's been finishing a lot of people with rear naked chokes. Normally from the scramble up, so they didn't get as far as standing up. So we haven't quite seen it that way around. But that arm slip, that standing arm triangle situation, is something that we've covered, in the past quite extensively as a club, not just with Jordan on his own, but as a club. And that all comes from being able to stand in the pocket and trade. And when you're standing in the pocket and trading, you don't want to literally trade in the sense of, bang for bang. You want to be punching, landing, and slipping the other person's shots. And that's exactly what happened. And again, this is all about skill of balance, to be able to slip and then be moving your feet at the same time takes extreme balance, and the sense of distance and range and timing that's involved to catch that. And that's impressive stuff. It really, really is. I ask anyone that's interested in martial arts in a proper technical level, technician's level, to look it back in slow motion and perhaps watch some breakdowns that are coming out. I've had a breakdown sent to me about Jordan's performance, both in favour of Hendon, good things he's done, but also mainly in the good things that Jordan done in a fight. And it really puts over the kind of skill that's being put in by these both combatants. It's great.
And Cage Warriors did it again on Friday night. They put on another incredible card and incredible fights.
Didn't they?
And some of the notable performances for me, which I really took a note of, I thought Ben Ellis was incredible.
Very good.
It was almost like a bit of a coming out party for him in terms of, I think, obviously he'd had his first loss where he felt like it was a bit frustrating. So to come back and put on a performance like that and actually really showcase his skills, like I thought his boxing looked so slick. His jab just was so sharp. So I thought that was a really he couldn't have done much more in terms of standing out from that performance. I thought Tobias Harria was just frightening into how he finished that fight, and he looks like a guy who just likes to fight. But he's gaining a little bit of a reputation for himself. Will Curry, you got to talk about him. He was again, and this one was an interesting one because his opponent is not necessarily the biggest name. Patrick Vallée, not the biggest name in European MMA, but what he had was a vast amount of experience. Versus Will Curry, who's only got a few fights in. I think he's 2-0 or 3-0 now. And for Will Curry to just dismantle him in the speed, in a minute or whatever it was very impressive. And again, can't do any more than that to just showcase your abilities and your skills.
Yeah, troubles perhaps could have come if you allowed someone like Patrick Valley to settle. That's when the experience shows through. The guy is a veteran both in his experience but in his age as well. And I think if you're going to come out and try and get the easiest version win, if you're facing someone of that sort of status, you have to try and get in quick and rock them and don't allow them to settle. And Will Curry did exactly that. He just did not let him settle. It was all over him until the finish, but did it in a patient way, if you know what I mean. It wasn't a complete, charade of mess and attack. It was calculated. It was a good sense of control and a very, very impressive performance overall. He just didn't allow Patrick to come back with anything. It was a case of getting the advantage early on and continue to keep him shut down. Just didn't allow him to get any of that experience to hit off against him. In fact, the only real experience you got to see there was the resilience and the understanding you have to constantly keep moving in that situation and not quit. If you start showing that you're lagging in trying to fight the position, then you're going to get the referee jump in early on it. But what a great performance by Will.
It was very, very good. Another one who I thought did pretty well was Kingsley Crawford. I was disappointed for Aiden James because he's been on a bit of a tear. He's looked really impressive, and he looked pretty good. Aiden did until he just got caught, and then he obviously got caught in the anaconda choke a minute and a half in it. But Kingsley just looked good. It didn't go Ryan Morgan's way. I thought Lona Kavanagh looked pretty
good,
impressive, so sharp. His boxing in particular looked really, really good. But Tobias Aria obviously stopped Decky. Decky got caught, and it's kind of one of those things, isn't it? Once you get caught, it's difficult. And then you had George Hardwick, obviously, as well, defeating Lucas Tapera.
Hardwick's good. Hardwick has almost like a Nick Diaz style punch. He doesn't have that devastating speed with his punching, but he's just constantly so calm in there. Just keeps chugging away, and he becomes really, really effective as the rounds go on. Really did impress me. I like what I saw with him.
Yes, indeed, mate. So let's talk UFC London.
Let's.
Wow. So it's difficult to know where to start in some ways, because there was so much going on. I think we'll do it bit by bit because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to really sort of make sure we don't forget anything. So it started off, we had Mohammed Makayev's debut versus Corey Durden, which lasted all of 58 seconds. It's difficult to get a real handle on anyone in 58 seconds on what their skills are, but Mohammed Makayev, by all accounts, in those 58 seconds looked about as impressive as he could do. Obviously, he's got a massive following. He's got a massive background in combat sports and stuff like that. He's not, even though it was his debut, he's not a green guy, if you like. He's a very, very skilled athlete. And I think in some ways, I think Corey Durden underestimated him just a little bit, just by some of the things he said in the run up to the fight. And he kind of was saying things like, oh, he's green and, he hasn't got the skills to beat someone like me who's experienced. And I thought that was maybe a little bit naive, because he just couldn't cope with Mohammed Makayev at all.
No.
What was your impression of Makayev? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time you've seen him fight, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But from what I saw briefly, he does fight with that youth of abandonment. He's just on kill mode. Although they don't seem to hold anything back because they don't seem to have to really worry about anything cardio issue wise. So they just go full bore in. I mean, straight into a jumping knee. It's not what you expect in the first round. You normally see things like jumping knees, maybe a little further in when someone's beginning to flag with their guard and get openings, and then you get more confidence to charge out with a flying knee. But he must have seen it to hit it. So it's just this acute sense of knowing what tools he's got and how to land them, even when the bell's just gone. I mean, it was just beautiful, and the way he set up that choke, and that he must have been doing these chokes in training, because when he had it, he didn't let up on it. It didn't look like it was there. It was hard to see very, very clearly. But clearly he's been in this situation before, and he held on to it almost knowing he was going to get it, and indeed he did. But I think you're right. I think Cody may well have underestimated him.
It was the big knee which set it up on the kind of flying knee, and after that, as soon as he got that guillotine, the standing guillotine choking to start with, Durden just couldn't adjust, and then like you say, Makayev just wasn't letting go. Once he had it, be interesting where they pair him up next, because obviously there's two sides to it, and we'll talk about this again with Paddy later as well. Is one side you've got the massive following, and then you've got the other side. He's had one fight in the UFC, so it's be interesting which way they go with. Like I saw in Dana White's interview after UFC London, he said, like, I could main event a show with Paddy because of his following and this, that, and the other. But he's also had 2 fights in the UFC. So it's kind of like you've got to weigh those up. And it's going to be very interesting how they do that. And next up, we had Corey Mckenna versus Elise Reed. Corey's coming into the studio next week to have a chat to me before she goes back to the US. I felt a bit sorry for her. I thought she got a bit outdone by the reach of her opponent, but I also thought, and I do find it difficult, whether I'm being a bit biased when I'm leaning into some of these fighters who I know or I like, and I wonder, am I seeing it quite as clear cut as I would if it was 2 people who I haven't had on the show, or I don't know, or I'm not friends with, or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? I do find it difficult sometimes to read if I'm doing it. I thought Corey Mckenna just won via the takedowns that she had, but I saw some people, it was quite split on social media. Some people said the same thing. Some people said they felt that the striking maybe got Elise Reed the win. It was a close fight, very close fight. Corey seemed to think that she had won by the end of the fight. The way she sort of was, the body language and stuff like that, seemed like she thought she'd won. And Uriah Faber in the corner, some of the information that they were feeding to her during the fight seemed to indicate what I was thinking. How did you think of the fight went, Corey's performance, but also did you agree with the decision? And
I more so agree with the decision than not. Although that said, if it did go the other way, I perhaps wouldn't have been surprised. I think the issue for Mckenna really was that her tactics wasn't in place. When she did shoot in, she nearly always had success. So, why didn't she just, grapple screw Reed up? I felt like she could. She's short anyway. She's got a nice fast shoot. She can really wrestle some. She's got enough grappling skills to be able to keep it there and get enough action going on top to be proactive to keep nipping out the rounds. I feel that there was an easier way to victory, but I think that her work rate was really good on the feet, but she was missing an awful lot. I mean, sometimes missing with the whole combination, not by much, but they were missing or barely skimming the lips of Reed. Whereas when Reed was landing, they were more consequential. If you look at the tally of significant strikes, Reed was ahead clearly in 2 of those rounds. Mckenna could have won this to me so easily. I think if she just shot in around the midpoint and just pressed it either against the fence or used that to get her to the ground, I think she would have had a much easier night's work and a smile on her face through getting a win. Yeah, I found it frustrating to watch because that, from my perspective, if I was in the corner, I mean, it's down to those coaches. Who knows? I may have been shouting at the same thing as I was, but I just felt like, look, it was so close on the feet. Other than, why would you want to leave it so close and leave it up to the judges anyway? she had clear successes. Keep probing there. It's for Reed to find an answer around being taken down, but Mckenna didn't do it. So, that was my frustration watching it. And that's the way I see it. But I understand other people see it their way too. But that's how I saw it. I'm imagining that I was the coach and she was my student. I would have been telling her to grind and wrestle out this Reed.
And I think
take away that reach of ours.
Ultimately, that was the difference, probably, wasn't it, between what was a very close fight. And I kind of agree with you. I think whilst, I wanted Corey to win, etc., I think if it had gone either way, it wasn't like that's the robbery of the century sort of thing. It could have gone either way. There's arguments for both. But yeah, I think I agree generally with the assessment of like how the fight went and stuff.
Yeah.
I felt like if Corey had just wrestled her and whatnot, she probably would have just ground her out for 3 rounds and won comfortably.
Yeah, because she was competitive enough in the striking to keep drawing Alice Reed into the striking game, which would open up.
I thought the technical side of the striking. I thought Corey's strikes looked more technically sound and better.
They was,
but Elise Reed just had the reach. So
that's right.
Corey's strikes weren't quite connecting, or if they were, they were quite glancing. It's the cross that people have got to bear, mate.
You constantly got to think of what the judges are either seeing regards positivity that you're performing, or you got to also think, well, when things ain't working, such as really fluffed up fouled shoots, how the judge is seeing that, and also when you start missing with not just one hit. So a big windmill punch and you're missing with that. So, but when you start missing with whole combinations, judges start looking for that.
Yeah.
And they start becoming more apparent. And you start watching that rather than the things that are landing. That could have been the case. And that's what I found I was doing. And I really said, but I'm being really critical here, but that's what I am as a coach. I've got to be critical of what I'm seeing as potential opponents of anyone that I put up against, any of these people. And likewise, if they was mine, this is how I would see things. And I just feel like there was an easy tactical route to victory there, or easier than what I was seeing. And, it'd be interesting to get her take on it if she's coming on soon. I'd love to talk to her about it. And I'm sure she wouldn't be hating upon me for trying to be honest. I really want the best for her. But she had all the skills there to beat this Reed. I really, really do. I think if her tactics were down, proper, I think she would have beaten Reed 8 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think so. I think if they fought like 9 times out of 10, you're right. If they fought 10 times, she'd probably win 9 times out of 10. But you got to get those tactics right. So next up was the first big entrance of the show. In Jack Shaw faced Timur Valiev. This was. What a fight this was. It was so unbelievably. There was a point in the 3rd round where I was just like, I don't think this guy's going to go down. He's just, because Jack Shaw just kept knocking him out or knocking him down. His feet and his legs would go from underneath him. He'd hit the deck and he'd just get up. It was an incredible fight. But I thought Jack Shaw was very good. I thought it was a world-class performance. But that 3rd round performance, I thought was about as good as any you will see in terms of how many times per month or whatever, or every show we're talking about these fights and we say there's like a close fight and coaches or teams are telling their fighters, you're 2 up, and then you see a fighter coast that 3rd round and they get knocked out or stopped, or it goes to decision and they lose the decision and they're a bit like, oh, well, hang on a minute. Richard said to Jack Shaw just before the 3rd round starts, I think we're 2 up, but let's go in as if we need to win the fight. And
exactly right.
That third round performance, in my opinion, was simply just world class. Everything about it. I think his stuff to take down is boxing, his grappling. I just thought he was sensational. And fair play, look, Timur Valiev was so game. He just he was happy to stand and bang. He didn't hide from anything, and he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for what was, a great fight to watch. I thought the the only thing missing from it from Jack Shaw's point of view was the finish.
Yeah.
However, what I was going to say is I felt like afterwards, a lot of other fighters got a mention and got credit, and Jack Shaw's name always seems to get left out of it. And I think, look, he's 16-0. He's just going to keep building and building and building and building, which is good for him in some ways. But when I looked at those, like, so for instance, Dana White, for the bonuses, normally you get a fight of the night, a performance of the night, and something else. If you're looking at the card, fight of the night is that, because all the other fights pretty much, I think, got stopped apart from the Corey Mckenna one. So I thought, like, fight of the night, he was probably a pretty safe bet. And then because he gave all the people who finished their fights a bonus, they didn't do a fight of the night.
Right.
So Jack missed out on that. And I just felt like a lot of the coverage afterwards was kind of glossing over like Jack Shaw's performance, because I thought his performance was absolutely as good as any other performance on that card. But I'm interested to see what you thought of, because I know you've been so impressed with how how Jack's performed over the years, and particularly in his UFC right now. So I'm interested in how you saw his performance.
Yeah. He was tested here. There's no two ways about it. He was truly tested. And when I say tested, things weren't going all his way. And out of the pure interest of the beauty of martial arts and all its potentials, it was good for me to see. I enjoyed seeing it. He was having a little trouble with some of the striking feeds where Valiev was counter kicking and making it look quite visual. He's kicking Shaw's leg up. Now, that wasn't looking too good. But Shaw is someone that can change things up, not only in between rounds, which we saw decisively with that third round. And you're absolutely right. It was an incredible round because of that capability of changing it up tactically and strategically and to push for the win, just in case those other two rounds may have not gone his way. But he's able to change and switch things up and make it really complex to be able to just expose a weakness and then keep probing at that weakness. Yes, his leg got kicked a few times, but he very, very quickly squashed that out of Valiev's capability. Valiev come with some other problems for sure to deal with. Shaw overcome them. He spent some time on the back, but he scrambled up. When he scrambled up, he was attacking his own takedowns. Shaw showed true veteran-orientated skills with that vigor of youth as well. I'm not saying he's a complete package in his capability yet. I think the kid is still growing in his abilities. And I think while he flies under the radar, so to speak, although I don't think he truly is, I think everyone knows that this kid's the real deal. I think while he don't get too much attention, I think he can continue to get the growing fights. I think that was a great step up. I think another fight of similar level would be perfect for him. And the longer that goes on, the more chance he's got at running all the way through to winning a title without a single loss, because he's going to get better from that experience. He's at that level now that, he doesn't, or for his growth, it wouldn't be beneficial for him to keep running through people. He needs to go through those difficulties. He needs someone to push him in areas that he hasn't been pushed with, in this arena being UFC. And we saw that, and we see him overcome it. Yes, it was a close fight. Some other people may have pushed it to be in the other way, and you can't argue that they can have their view to see it that way. But I saw a very, very mature Jack Shaw. I think the team is extremely well versed in changing things up in the moment, and that's exactly what we saw. I was utterly impressed with the performance. I really was. Still looked fluent, looked composed even under pressure, and was able to therefore continue to put pressure when he had just been put under pressure. He never did he scramble up off his back after being the recipient of some aggression. Did he come up and look just to hold? He was holding, then hitting, then looking for a takedown. He was always on the counter. And I think that's why the judges gave him a nod, because he wasn't purely defending. He would defend into counters. He was never, ever just receiving for the sake of receiving. He was always looking to turn things around and get it on winning trajectory for himself in each round.
Yeah, and I think ultimately I did the kind of social media comments, and I didn't see anyone really suggesting that the fight should have gone the other way, which is normally an indication that, the judges have got it right or whatnot. Performance-wise, there was one point where I was a bit nervous. Was when he had him in the choke. I think it was a guillotine choke.
Yes.
Just for a minute, it looked like he might have him, but Jack was very clever with that. Is he put his head to the mat?
Yes.
How many fighters do you see almost panic in that situation?
And
they start wriggling around,
there.
and then it just gets tighter, doesn't it? He was so calm. He even at one point gestured over to his corner that he was all right.
Yeah, he put thumbs up.
Speak to me about how much it takes to be that calm at the level, the age he's at, where the stage he's on. How unique is that to someone?
It's not something you would see very often. You just see it often because you're seeing the highest end fighters have got that capability in their game to do it. But it ain't a normal trait, human to human. It just isn't. And to put things in perspective, if anyone, even fighters of today that are performing such a Jack Shore, you ask him what his first amateur was like, you go deaf because of the adrenaline. One of the things that adrenaline does, and you're in that fight or flight mode, is that you don't hear nothing. You can't respond to your corner. You don't really hear anything. It's an absolute just speed rush event. You can't remember much about what happened in the fight in massive detail. It's just a big mess in your mind, in your memory. But as you move up and you can get more and more composed, you become able to not only react in the moment, but to think in the moment too. And another good example about it, sorry to keep going back to Jordan, but Jordan had a very difficult situation in the end of that first round where his back was taken, but he was signaling over to me, just to see, what should I do anything different here? I feel safe though. I was just saying, just wait. No problem. Just keep hold of him. Just don't get to the end of the round. We've got 20 more minutes. That was what I was trying to signal over to him. And he was signaling over to me. No panic here. I don't feel no threat at all. So he wanted to put us as cornermen. Relax, guys. Yes, okay, I made a little mistake here, but I'm going to get over this and we go back to work in the next round. To be able to do that is such composure, and also being in tune with your team. And, being in tune with your team and being composed, it's only ever going to push you to getting those wins when those wins are really, on a fine line of switching the other way. Great kid. I love the way he performs. I really, really do. And I think this guy is going to be around for many, many years and have a lot of success. And I would bet money on him to become a title holder in his weight at some point.
Yes, I think so. The next fight was it was just this was just like a stream of incredible moments and fights. You had Paul Craig, ranked 11 versus ranked 9 Nikita Krylov, with Paul Craig picking up the triangle choke victory from the bottom after facing all sorts of problems. As you know, as we talked about before, Nikita Krylov I'm a big fan of his work, and he's a good fighter. And he had Paul Craig in some trouble, and somehow Paul Craig remained calm, as you're just talking about, composure, and just being aware of your surroundings and what's going on. Stayed calm, got the triangle choke from underneath, and it was over in seconds. Paul Craig is just impressing me more and more and more. He's so dangerous on the ground. He moves like a lightweight. He's got hips like a lightweight. Do you see him fire up those hips? I'll call it having live hips. And, to get your hips up that high, that quick at that sort of size. I mean, sort of, 6'3", 6'3.5". They're carrying natural body weight, even though he's long and lean at that weight. It was just so fast with it. He just knew it was there. He just grabbed up and took that posture down and nailed it. And look, yes, he was going through some difficult times and was losing the round, but never did you see in his face expression that he was panicked. He was biding his time to get back to guard, get back to potentially attacking. I think he just kind of had it in himself that he knew, you just let me in once, I won't have a position, I'll have a submission. That was literally what I felt that he was waiting for. He goes, yeah, you take side control. I'll scramble back and get my guard. And when I do, I'm going to nail my time. You will make a mistake. And he did. He did make a mistake. He only made one. So comfortable on his back, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely is. And look, in that weight division, being comfortable on your back, those guys hit hard on top. So listen, you've got to be able to manage the potential pressure coming down on you with these hard hitters. Now, our ways, there are tactics, there are set pieces that you can use to make their balance or make their reach not be able to punch through really, really hard. He was doing that really, really effectively. And then when the frustration come in and Krylov tried to put down the big shots by rising up and coming down, he exposed himself for that triangle. And that's the thing there. When someone's on top, being, just not being able to bite through their strikes, and they know got a situation where they could potentially put someone away, they can fall into temptation to overstretch themselves. He overstretched himself, and he got nailed. He got tagged. Paul Craig, what a man!
Yeah, impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Then next up, we had Sergei Pavlovich defeated Shamil Abdulhamikov via TKO punches about 4 minutes of the first round. This was quite an interesting one as well. The way it kind of developed. It was ranked 15, beating ranked 10. So he was the underdog. And I thought he was quite impressive in the way he went about his business.
Yeah, looked really good. He had a little bit of an unusual stance. He has his lead arm really extended out, which I found was a little strange. In fact, they both kind of went to that habit a little bit. But he nailed him. And in this sort of weight division, you nail him, you follow up on it, and he did really quick because it was in the first round. It was so aggressive. I'm just looking back because I'm trying to remember the actual angle of the strike, and I'm looking it back now to see what it was. I think it was an uppercut. Let me just see. Yeah, it was an uppercut. And again, when I said that, sometimes they both fell into this little bit of a habit of like having their hands a little wayward, and there are times to hit those long uppercuts in. But he did it with the rear arm. He just come up with it. I mean, nice accuracy, really, really was. And I think his opponent was feeling like it was an early stoppage, and maybe he could have fought on, but he was just covering up. You can't do that. You're just asking for the ref to step in. The ref is there to keep you potentially safe and not make the sport look barbaric. And listen, two guys fighting each other and having blood and rocking each other, that's not barbaric. They're both coherent attackers on each other. But when you're just feetling up in that, you're showing that you don't really want to be in there for the fight. It just looks too passive. So I think it was a great stoppage. I think Dan Mahovahedi, was it? I think it was a great stoppage. I don't think it was early at all. I think he responded to what he was seeing, which is someone that wasn't willing to fight back.
Interesting, mate. Interesting indeed. It's a really good card. I'm going to skip now to the Ilia Tapiria versus Jai Herbert, which was like the final fight on the prelims. This was a really weird one. I feel sorry for Jai Herbert in that he has taken some absolute killer fights since he's come into the UFC. He has taken much harder fights than I'm sure most coaches and fighters would take in their first few fights in the UFC. You mentioned about Modestas before and about other fighters. You think that the first contract, say a 3-fight contract, take 3 winnable fights, then renegotiate your contract, then you go on and start really facing those sort of challenging fights. And Jai Herbert's just gone in and he's just fighting all sorts of people. And Tapiria has got so much power, but the first round, Jai Herbert just destroyed him in terms of how the fight went. The speed. It was so one-sided.
Jai Herbert's speed and precision is frightful. He just hasn't quite pulled forward with the results enough for that kind of skill tribute. Look, he was just
mate. Tonight, I saw someone suggest, someone in the media or a pundit or something, someone suggested that they think he's got a psychological problem in that if he doesn't finish the fight in that first round, where he's been on top and he's sharp and he's showcasing his striking skills, if he doesn't get the finish early on, he kind of gets in his own head, and then he got caught with it. Look, it was a massive shot, and not every fighter's got that power that Tapiria's got. But do you think there's anything to that? Because he's been caught a couple of times recently in a similar sort of fashion, where he started off well and then.
I don't think it's his mentality by any stretch. I really don't.
Okay.
I just think
the question that someone else
yeah,
asked.
I don't think it's that. I just think, we said this before about Conor McGregor. He's a real good giver of punishment.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't go his way, he kind of falls apart defensively. I just feel like Jai Herbert's style is all attack. I just don't think he's slick in defense. So when someone goes to throw a strike at Jai Herbert, he'll just try and throw faster and longer and use his speed to win over the situation. And when that's winning, it looks great. But when they're beating you to the punch, he's not using really any slips and anything complex. He does use some nice footwork. But, moving the whole of your body location at all times to avoid being struck when you attack as much as he does, it's a percentage chance before you finally get caught. I think it's about arm placement and head movement that needs to be added into his game, along with that nice footwork that he has. To me, there's always three main elements of defense, which I keep repeating, which is body location, head movement, and then your guard. And depending on what you want to do in your striking, you would use, when you're being defensive, it would be your footwork location that comes into place first. Head movement, when you want to, when your footwork gets outmatched by the other footwork person coming in to attack you. So in which case you've got to start slipping. And when you're slipping, you could potentially counter and throw at the same time, right? And then finally, you've got your block, you've got your tight form. So, okay, if he does find your body location on your feet, does find your head when you're weaving and bobbing and slipping, you've got your block there. So you've got 3 layers to get through before you're landing any shot on me, potentially. I feel like, his arm position is up to attack, but not up to defend. I think it's all feet location. His hands are in a position to attack at all times. Sure, I hope you understand that. I think. I hope I'm explaining myself. You know what? If we had a gym here, I could demonstrate it with a partner really, really well. But that's what I feel that I'm seeing. I just feel like he's a good giver, just a poor receiver, technically.
Tapiria deserves credit, though, to come back after getting his face smashed in.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, what a warrior. I mean, the guy's dangerous. And Jai Herbert, it'd be nice to see him being built up again, to see whether him and his camp can iron out any particular issues that have been sort of exposed, perhaps in the way that I'm seeing it. Perhaps they see it different from me. And perhaps I'm wrong. I'm just a coach with my views, that's all. But it would be nice for him not to have such incredibly dangerous fights and maybe have some time for growth again, because he has got the potential to be a real star with that style. And I just feel like, to really see that beautiful style that he has, we want to see it in its full aggression and fully success, see him knock people out. And it'd be just nice for him to have the style of guy where that could be the case. But he keeps fighting these absolute monsters, which he's got to face at some point.
Speaking of big knockouts, mate, big knockouts. Next up, first fight on the main card, Molly McCann defeated Luana Carolina with a spinning and back elbow in 2 minutes into the third round. Just very quickly, mate. Look, the KO was sensational. The way she set it up and then just boom. It was a scary knockout.
It was beautiful. And it come at a time when Lorna was beginning to get confident and beginning to look a little dangerous.
I thought Molly McCann first 2 rounds was excellent. The way she did everything that she should have done to win that fight. She used her best skills. Her best skills is to make it a dogfight and get in there in the pocket and just fight. That's her best chances of winning, because she's got a good chin and she's good striking. But she was starting to tire, and that made that finish better for me, because she was starting to tire. She knew it, but she still had the mental capacity or the wherewithal to keep an eye on her and to set her up for that. The way you could see her just glance over her shoulder for the elbow, top level, sensational. And I was so pleased for her, because a couple of years ago, or maybe, probably a couple of years now, she was having a really tricky period in the UFC, and it looked like there was a point where she was basically fighting to stay in the UFC. And now all of a sudden she's on a bit of a run, and she can't be that far off a title shot, to be honest. I don't know where she's ranked and stuff like that at the moment, but like she can't be that far from getting a real top fight, should I say, not a title fight.
Yeah,
Like
I think
she's a big name.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she'll be a good sort of 18 months to 2 years of continuing performances like that to get a title shot. I think she's still got a bit of climbing to do. Yeah, I know what you mean. I understand what you mean, but yeah, certainly, I think another two good performances, she'll start reaching into the higher ranked people. But to do that, she's got to monitor her output. It was impressive to see that Lorna allowed it to happen a little bit. She looked a little, maybe that the occasion got the better of her, maybe knowing that she wasn't on home turf and she was on the home turf of her opponent. But she looked a little lackluster, didn't she, in the first 2 rounds? And only really come alive
shocked
in the final round. Yeah, it didn't look right. It didn't look right, whether it was a weight cut or whether it's the occasion. I would more think it was the occasion got to her, maybe the aggressive attitude of Molly that maybe intimidated her. But perhaps after having everything through her and she was still in there, she started to think, hey, you know, maybe I'd imagine this. I mean, it's guesswork, but I imagine that she went back in that third round and they said, look, she's throwing everything at you. She can't get you out of there. Chase her down. Now get the kill. You need to win this round. You need to take her out. And I think she was, yeah, I have taken everything. But she took all the punches, but she had not anticipated to take a spinning back elbow like that. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful setup. It was a scary knockout. And yeah, I mean, she was out on the feet, wasn't she? She was out before she hit the canvas. It was, yeah, nice one for the highlight reel. And like you said, you know, she went through some difficult times where she was literally, you know, on the cusp of perhaps being cut from UFC. But what an absolute turnaround. But I do want to see her hold back the length of aggression that she was putting in. I just think she was getting carried away with the occasion. And this is the thing with her. I think she's very, very emotional. I think she really expresses the emotion that she's feeling at the time. And she was feeling the moment of the crowd. She really, really was. And yeah, nice to see. It made me smile. But against a better caliber wrestler, they may well shoot underneath and spoil her work.
Do you know what her style reminds me of? Is who's the lad in Cage Warriors who gives me heart palpitations every time I watch him fight? Oh, what's his name? Liam Gittins. Yeah, he just like I love watching him fight, but like there's been a couple of times recently where I'm just like, oh mate, slow down. And he got knocked out, didn't he? The one time where he was just going and going and going, and he was like, oh come on, just take a step back. She reminds me of that style, but it's working for her at the moment. But again, you're right. When you face better opponents, they'll pick you off a bit. Speaking of better opponents, we're really getting into the high level stuff now. Really, I suppose. Gunnar Nelson defeated Takashi Sato via a unanimous decision. I thought this was Gunnar Nelson's one of his best performances in a couple of years. I thought he was really good, really impressive.
Yeah, and by the way, I think I predicted all the wins correct.
Well, do you know what? We won't. I haven't decided if I'm going to tell Corey this on when I see her. Is if Corey Mckenna had won, I would have won 2,200 quid.
Oh, really? No, don't tell her.
It was her bet. It was her fight, which was the only one I got wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Gutted, mate. Oh, there we go.
But Gunnar Nelson, he's so slick. So slick. I mean, his style could perhaps be spoilt by the real top end in the division. You know, maybe they can stop him being as effective, but once he starts getting his own way, he just looks so nice when he does it. I mean, his striking's awkward enough that you have to keep a tight guard, and in doing so, it does give him these unusual entries to get the takedowns, and he goes about it a really unusual way. But he gets the work done. I just love the way he grapples. There's something silky and smooth, something creamy about the way he moves on the ground. There's nothing over fast.
It's all natural to him, isn't it?
Yeah, you just know it's something that's in his body. He's done these movements thousands of times, and each movement is just there instinctively. It's to behold, to watch him. It really is. Great fight, great performance, and I'd just like to see him fight a little more often. I just get the sense that, you know, these increments of gaps in between each time he fights, maybe he's tapering down, you know, from perhaps ever having a title run. But I think he's good enough to still tout it up there with the top guys. I'm just curious of that unusual style, how effective, how far up he could be effective. I just want to see him take on someone more often, not even just someone more, but someone more often. I just want to see him a little bit more active.
Yeah, I think that's fair, mate. I think I can't remember his age now, but I don't know whether he's maybe coming towards
Is
the
he
latter.
37?
Yeah, I think he's probably coming to the latter part of his
Maybe
career. But he's also, you know, he's a skilled fighter still. He's shown that again. Yeah. It's just kind of whether, you know, whether he's still at that very, very top level. But I mean, from a grappling point of view, he was exceptional. Sato just couldn't live with him.
No.
Next up, Paddy the Paddy Pimblett defeated Kazula Vargas. Paddy got caught early on.
Again,
quite a big shot. But this time, I don't think it was because, like, you know, in the first fight, he had his chin exposed and it was up. And, like, he got caught because he made a mistake. This time, I thought he just got caught by a good shot. But if you remember, about a month ago, I had these couple of American MMA fans going at me on Twitter telling me that Cowboy Cerrone would just take Paddy down and he would tap him out. And I was like,
nah.
Paddy, if anything, people think that he's people think that Paddy is a striker, and he can strike, he can knock people out, but his bread and butter, what he is the best at, is grappling.
Yeah.
You don't nail the amount of flying triangles on the big stage that he has if you're not a very skilled grappler.
Yeah.
So yes, he got caught, but he never looked too much in trouble, I don't think, from what I can remember. And similar to Jordan in some ways, when he got that rear naked choke in position, the quickness of thought and the way, as soon as he realized it was there or it might be there, that potential to be there was enough for him to make little movements and adjust his body. And the guy just had no answer for it. Once he took that position, it was that J throw, wasn't it?
Very nice throw.
And they called it about 2 minutes before. I forget his name now.
They were talking about it. Yeah,
the coach said to him while the guy had Paddy sort of against the fence, but Paddy had adjusted his leg by that point, and he said J flow. And then like about a minute, and you think he's not listening, but he just little adjustments of his feet, and then before you know it, big judo throw, and that was it. Really, that changed the whole momentum of where that fight was. You know, it was the guy felt comfortable. Vargas was comfortable. He thought he had Paddy against the cage. He'd had the knockdown early on, so he thought, you know, if I just got him in the clinch, I'll try and take him down again. Round's mine. And Paddy does the judo throw, and he's choked him out 30 seconds or 45 seconds later or whatever it was. So I can see why people still think there's questions to be answered for Paddy, because there is. But I thought from the moment he got knocked down, I thought his performance was pretty flawless, because the way he dealt with the pressure from the knockdown and then on to the judo throw and the finish, I think that takes a lot of skill, but it also takes a lot of mental strength to be knocked down and then have the wherewithal to be calm, to deal with the grappling and the pressure that the guy's putting on him, and then transition it all, you know, get up, then do the judo throw, and he blocked a trip before the judo throw as well.
Yeah.
So he's got knocked down by the punch. The guy's trying to get mount and on top and doing some grappling. Paddy's forced his way back to his feet. Then he's stopped a trip. Then he's kind of turned it on him, the clinch, and done the judo throw. And then it's game over not long after that. So I think from the punch to the end, to me, that shows that his skills are very high level, but also you want him to not get caught in that first 30 seconds like he has twice now.
Yeah. If all we can criticise him for is getting hit once before he dominated and gets the submission, I think perhaps anyone's being hard on him. There are still questions about different areas of his game, but partly because he's so good in specific areas that he's getting it done in the first few minutes. We ain't able to see whether any of those questions are being answered. So, those questions will keep on being there for all of us. And but I like seeing him win. He's a British guy, although he'd more likely, prefer to be known as just a Liverpoolian, which is absolutely fine. Look, he's a nice guy. I know he's really, really brash, but this personality is going to do nothing but good for the sport. I love it. I love the guy to bits. I love what he's doing in there stylistically. Time will tell, won't it? The time will give all the answers to people's questions. But right now, you can't knock the kid. He's gone in there and he's got 2 subs on his game. Well, no, knockout wasn't it in the previous one? But the kid's doing good. He's getting stoppages. Talk
to me a bit about that period that I mentioned where he gets hit, and he gets hit and then he gets caught a couple of times, like within, when the guy's on top, which you'd expect because the guy's got top position. But like, talk to me about his skills, because he uses like a butterfly guard to stop the guy pushing on to get mount, and then you can see he's very calm. His head's moving to certain positions to stop the guy transitioning to a full mount or anything, and then he eventually shuffles to the cage and gets to his feet. I'm kind of interested, as someone who's a high-level grappler like yourself, what you thought of his performance after he got knocked down.
I mean, really, really good. One of the things you've got to be able to do is damage limitations, and using that double butterfly is really, really good because they're not deep in your guard, like a half guard or just a closed guard from the get-go, say. They can really stand up and rain down shots on you. But of course, with a butterfly, if you stand up, you still got the length of your leg from your knee to extend up with your hips as well. So it stops a lot of the ground and pound, and it attacks their base a lot. He did briefly have half guard, but he was doing very, very good again, stopping the opponent being really proactive with the strikes. He weren't really getting hit consequentially. And then use defense in a very, very typical way with the overwrap to stand up. I think Vargas, as a tactic there, really should have been breaking free and going back to the only place that he had any kind of success, which was to be aggressive with the hands. But he stayed playing around in that clinch, and it went bandy for him. Look, if you're going to beat Paddy Pimblett, unless you're top world-class grappler or top world-class wrestler, I think you have no place clinching up with a guy. If you're going to beat this guy as he is at the moment, you've got to try and beat this guy on the feet, so that as and when, if it did go to the ground, he's getting it to the ground where he's in so much physical deficit that he's ineffective. But mixing it with him in the first round like he did was not a good idea. I think Vargas just played the wrong game.
Sorry, mate. I was going to say, do you think part of it is that the American fighters, because you see a lot of American fans basically saying that the British fighters can't wrestle, can't grapple, etc., because it's a fairly new thing in terms of like the last 10, 15 years where the British fighters have really started to excel at those skills. And do you think it's almost like a bit of a naivety that they think, so Vargas in this case has thought, well, I've knocked him down, I've got half guard or whatever, and then he thinks that he's able to control Paddy because he's the superior grappler?
Maybe in training he's had some good jiu-jitsu guys that he's been training with, but not necessarily MMA guys, and maybe he's been getting on really nicely with them there. But look, there is a difference between just a pure grappler and someone that can grapple and strike and do the whole shebang. And so I don't know. Again, it's a guessing game here, but I'm just surmising that maybe he was just, doing well with the grapplers that he had in his camp and felt that he could grapple with someone like Paddy. Paddy's an MMA grappler. I mean, don't get me wrong, probably a great grappler in his own right. in terms of competing just on the mat, but he's an MMA grappler. He knows how to create those openings using the threats of strikes. Grappling is slightly different in the cage. He's just good, and he's dangerous at it. I just think Vargas was perhaps trying to prove a point and letting that get the better of him. Look, to be a successful fighter, you've got to be a smart fighter, and you've got to play a good tactic and good strategy. It was not good tactics, and it was not good strategy playing into Paddy Pimblett's strengths. I like I say, I felt like there may be a disregard of the level he felt Paddy was really at. Well, he felt the full force of it if he thought he was going to be getting the better of him there, because he just didn't. But Paddy showed great respect afterwards, going over, putting his hand up. I love that. Paddy ain't really got any hatred for anyone. He just wants to win, and in emphatic fashion, and adhere and please the crowd, and he's been doing that.
Interesting, mate. It's going to be interesting where he goes. So next up, mate, was the fight I was actually looking forward to the most. I was so excited by this fight. But again, much like Jack Shaw, I don't feel that Arnold Allen gets the credit that he deserves for being 7th or 6th in the rankings before this fight. He's in those rankings in the top 10 because he has blazed through everything they've put in front of him, whether it's by decision or a finish. But I know he was conscious of he hasn't had as many finishes, because he said it to us on the show, that he feels like he should have had more finishes. But yeah, Dan Hooker by far was the toughest fight he has ever had. A big name who is capable of, on his day, beating the very best in the world. It's fought for titles. This was a big, big test for Arnold Allen in the co-main event. And wow.
Well, it didn't end up being a test at all, because it was pretty much going his way from start to finish.
Decimated him, mate, didn't he?
I mean, I was worried he was going to punch himself out. He did what Molly McCain was doing, really going on these massive flurries. I was a little concerned that he was going to punch himself out. But check this guy's physique out and fitness and composure. We've had him on the podcast, I believe, 2 times.
Yeah.
He's a very, very calm demeanor. So he's not someone that's going to get himself excited and have his heart rate spiking. He kept himself really leveled. Even though he had that flurry, he calmed down, started going through single shots, still looked really sharp, and then felt the energy to go on another flurry as he sensed the finish line was there. Not to take anything away from Arnold Allen's performance, because it was emphatic against a very potential tough opponent. I just don't think Dan Hooker is effective at featherweight. I think it's too small for him.
I think you could see the weight cut in the weigh-ins. I thought he looked terrible. If you remember, that famous photo of Conor McGregor where he looks really gaunt and he just looks horrible. Like, that's how I felt Hooker looked in the weigh-ins.
He did.
And I know they all look a bit rough. Like Jack Shaw looked a bit rough in his weigh-in, but they rehydrate and they take on food and they look all right then. But like, I don't want to take anything away from Arnold, because at the end of the day, Dan Hooker is capable of fighting a featherweight. He'd still be a top 10 fighter. He might not just be as elite as he is when he's upper weight. Yeah. But look, Arnold Allen destroyed him, and Dan Hooker's now got 2 big losses. He's been stopped twice as well. Could there be like a psychological thing there now where it's in his head? I don't know. It's because he did look shocked once he got caught a few times in that first combination, which bloodies up his nose and stuff. Yeah, he starts backing away, and he looks genuinely like, oh my god, the speed of Arnold. I think of Arnold Allen surprised him.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed part of it on the head there. I think he felt helpless to the speed of Arnold Allen, and not really just the speed of Arnold Allen. I think it was a little bit of the factor that he was slower because of that weight cut. He looked slow. He looked slow in reaction, and I think that just amplified the speed difference between them. The fact that Arnold Allen fairly quick, being a natural featherweight, an athletic one at that, and then you got Dan Hooker coming down perhaps at a weight too much, and it made him look lethargic, and lethargic meaning slow as well. So everything that would be a potential advantage for Dan Hooker, which is range and being long, and trying to use that as his main stabbing tool against Arnold Allen, he just didn't have the snappiness in his arms or in his footwork to make his length advantage, and it all actually become a disadvantage to him. Those long limbs look very slow, weak. He looked very open defensively. And so I don't think we got the best Dan Hooker in there because he was unable to at that weight. I mean, look, that could have been a very different fight if they both accepted to fight lightweight. Dan Hooker would have been the bigger man, and he would have been fresher, and that would have looked different then. I still would have my money on Arnold Allen because I think he's hugely underrated. And you point out this. I think sometimes big talkers and not people with these really noisy followers, they don't seem to get the attention they deserve in their performances. And I think that goes for both Arnold Allen and Shaw. I think they both fly under the radar largely because they don't have this really noisy rambling. And you've got Pimlet, very new on the scene. He's got more attention surrounding him than Jack Shaw has. And Jack Shaw's boasting an incredible fight record in UFC. Well, is it not more than that? Is it not 17 now? No,
it's 16 after Saturday.
It is 16. All right.
Like Arnold Allen is on like an 8-fight win streak. I think he is on 9.
He is.
He's just
what do you think about that? Would you say that's a fair assessment?
I think so. I think the only thing I would say is I think whilst I agree that there may be a weight cut thing with Hooker, I kind of do agree with that. But I also think that Arnold Allen's speed is Arnold. That's his speed. That's his skill, part of his skill set. And even if Dan Hooker was not having any issue with the weight cut or whatever, I still think he'd have struggled to deal with that speed. So I think whilst it's a fair point, I also don't think it's fair to almost take that away from Arnold Allen, if you get
and that's why I said at the beginning not to take anything away. I think it would have been the case anyway. I think it would have been much more competitive if it was a lightweight, but it's not. Arnold Allen specializes in featherweight. Dan Hooker's come down to that weight, and I think is a less effective Dan Hooker by doing that. And he come up extra short.
It wasn't a competitive fight.
At all.
On that note, mate, the main event was Volkov versus Tom Aspinall, and that was not competitive either.
It was not.
Tom Aspinall, mate, is an absolute killer, and I don't care what anyone says. He will be heavyweight champion within 2 years, easy.
He will
not
be.
Easy, but like 100%, he'll be the champion. The only fight I'm interested in from heavyweight point of view is him versus Ngannou or Cyril Gane. They're the only 2 fights I want now because that's how emphatic this victory was in every way for me. Like whether it was the grappling to finish, the takedowns, or the boxing, it was all so emphatic that I almost feel like any other fight other than those two is almost like disrespectful. Do you know what I mean? Like just because I just looked at that fight and I've watched it back a couple of times now, and Volkov just could not live with any of the abilities that Tom Aspinall had. He couldn't live with his boxing, and then when he did catch him with something, Tom Aspinall just drilled him down like a rugby player. He just took him down, and once he had him in that I forget what it's called, where he had his arm flat out.
Yeah, extended armbar, wasn't it?
Yeah, they said it was a Kimura, but it was almost like an inside-out Kimura, if you like. But it was, it was beautiful, so good. And his performance was just next level. It was unbelievable. And I was trying to explain to my father-in-law, who's like a casual fan, so I was trying to sort of explain to him how big a thing it was for him to come out and perform at that level for someone who's fairly like he's on a 8-fight win streak now, but like he's only had a few fights in the UFC, so to come out and dominate Volkov like that for me was just I was blown away. I was so impressed.
Yeah, well, he beat him in the area that Volkov is strongest in, which is his striking. As we well know, he's top world class, he's top world tier. And he was lost with Aspinall on the feet. And you said about Tom Aspinall's boxing, it was great, but also was his kicks. He's trading him with some beautiful, well-timed leg kicks. Very, very well placed. The takedown was beautiful. The grappling was practically flawless up against the level of Volkov, which is not so good on the ground. I think Volkov, isn't he a black belt as well? But
yeah,
I think he is. But
the speed that Tom Aspinall does stuff is not the speed of
and
the heavyweight.
No, it was frightful. I mean, from the get-go, I had it in my heart of hearts he was going to win all day long against Volkov, and I'm not surprised how
I thought he was going to win. I just was a little surprised at the way he did it.
He did it so
makes sense.
Ruthlessly, but controlled. Yeah. Did you see how calm he was when he was on top and just smacking down a few elbows? And it was just like he knew he was levels above. Even on the feet, he was not panicked on the feet at all. At all. The guy's truly well-rounded. Well-rounded. Yeah, go on.
Go on, mate.
Yeah, no, I just can't see anyone beating him. I literally cannot.
So I was just looking at the rankings. So I would imagine. So like Tom Aspinall, he was 11th before this fight. I'd imagine he'll be like right up there now. Probably Volkov is 6th. So I would have thought he's going to be somewhere around there. But I look at the people in the top, say 8. Okay, so you've got Chris Ducasse, Tom Aspinall would absolutely smoke him. In my opinion.
Pointless.
So it's a pointless fight. Rosenstruck, I think, might be a bit closer, but I still think Aspinall will beat him comfortably because his all-round game's so good.
Yeah,
he's too skillful. Volkov, he's already beaten. Derek Lewis could knock anyone out. But he's just so skillful with his wrestling, his takedowns, his grappling. That I just think Derek Lewis has shown over the years that when he faces someone with those types of skills, he can't live with it. So unless he knocks him out and he catches him early, it's pointless almost. And this is why I understand why Tom Aspinall called out Tai Tuivasa. And I thought it was quite a clever call out because Tai Tuivasa will take the fight. Tai Tuivasa's ranked 3, so it's another big name to add. But I don't see Tai Tuivasa getting anywhere near Tom Aspinall, simply because Tom Aspinall's head movement. And I think we talk about his boxing. It's not just the output; it's the defensive side of his boxing. Also, his guard, his head movement is next level. Like
he don't put him. He don't trade with risk. He doesn't make risks.
Well, no one's hit him yet. If you think back to his fights, he has not one fight in that heavyweight division, and no one has just caught him with a big shot.
And that's a smart move in that division. You don't want to be getting hit by anyone because it's curtains from anyone if they land on the button in that weight division. That's the beauty of watching heavyweights. You know, knockouts can come thick and fast and at any time. Even when someone looks close to being out on their feet, it can be turned around with one hit. But he looks like he's just so sure-footed with everything. Maybe we're getting above ourselves and getting a bit too excited here, but how can you not? How can you not? He's up against top 10 in the world. Yeah, and running through them as if they're absolute different levels. It literally looked pro versus amateur. It was a bully fest.
Has anyone troubled him yet? I'm trying to think back to his other fights.
No, he ran through Arlovsky as well. No, if you remember against Arlovsky, he ran through him. Dominant.
It looks like it's going to be Tai Tuivasa. I think when I look at those fights, the only ones I could see them putting him against, you've got the top 5 basically, which is Derek Lewis. I think it's pointless, but I could see them doing that matchup because Derek Lewis brings in some good numbers and it's a good fight for people to watch. Although I think Tai Tuivasa's 2 rankings above that, and he's already called him out, so maybe they won't do the Derek Lewis one. You've got Curtis Blades. Not really interested in that, to be honest. From a personal point of view, this is, of course. But then you've got Stipe Miocic, Tai Tuivasa, Stipe, Cyril Gane, and then champion. So I guess they're going to go with the Tuivasa fight next. And then
it makes the most sense out of all of them, to be honest.
Yeah, and then he's going to probably have to fight either Gagne or Stipe. If he gets through to Tuivasa, he's got to fight Gagne or Stipe to get a title shot. The Stipe one interests me, I've got to say. I think that could be a a real test for him. But
Yeah.
we said that about Arlovski. We said, right, this is going to be a test for him, and he just smoked him.
Yeah.
But then we said Volkov. Like Volkov's, he's experienced. He's been there at the top level. He won't mind going into UFC London and having the crowd on his back, and just decimated him. And like Volkov, I just watching them do the arm raising. Volkov looks like resigned to the fact that like there was nothing I could do about that.
He didn't know what was happening to him. Yeah.
He doesn't look frustrated like someone who's made a mistake. He doesn't look someone who feels hard done by. He just looks resigned to the fact that he got beaten by the better man on the night.
Yeah. He for the first time ever looked absolutely lost on the feet as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like he had anywhere to escape to feel that he was going to get productive. He was trying to do those kicks, to the midsection ahead when he got the space to do so, but they just looked weak. He looked like he already had the fight pressured out of him by that stage already, very, very early on. Just could not deal with the pace and the technical crispness of Aspinall.
So I was just looking at the rank, just while I've got the rankings open. We were talking about Molly McCann. She's on a bit of a streak. So what's she fight? She fights at flyweight, doesn't she? So if you look at the kind of bottom rank fights, just seeing if there's anyone in there who might be a potential matchup for her. You've got Macy Barber as ranked 14th. Could be quite an interesting.
That would be a suitable style. Yeah, that'd be a nice style fight as well.
You've got Manon Fiore, Erin Blanchchild, and then just above them you've got like Alexa Grasso and Jessica Ai, Cynthia Calvillo. So I think there's a few fights there, but I think Macy Barber's the one that stands up.
Yeah, as soon as you said that one, I think that's a sensible. Someone that's got some all-round capabilities there that ain't going to get overrun with any of the pressure stuff that she did, that night. So yeah, I think that could be probably the most consensual approach, because I still think there's things to be learned for her on her journey.
Yes. Oh yeah, 100%.
She's finding ways to get back to winning ways, and that's great to see. But let's get those winning ways up stage by stage. I just don't want to see her have a confidence knock just yet. I just think our confidence could be knocked in a fight very, very quickly. But I feel like if she can get more trajectory of another 2 wins, steadily going up the ranks, I think she'll start getting confident enough to be dangerous for anyone in that sort of top 6 or 7.
Yeah. Just having a quick look then. Arnold Allen called out Kelvin Kattar, who's ranked 5th. So Arnold Allen's probably going to be ranked 6th after that fight. So that's going to be quite a good one. And then you've got like Korean Zombies fighting for the title, isn't he, soon? But a fight which I'm quite interested in, I would like to see as a fan, is Arnold Allen versus Yaya Rodriguez. But I think Rodriguez might be injured. But I just think as a fight, just looks on paper, looks amazing.
On paper, that'd be beautiful.
And Jack Shaw is going to get a ranked opponent in the next fight, I would imagine. So
good for him. He's ready for that.
You got Sean O'Malley, ranked number 12. Ricky
Wouldn't
Simone,
want that for him,
Marlon Moraes, Rafael Asenko. I think Sean O'Malley gets kept away from Jack Shaw for as long as possible, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because they're like Sean O'Malley and Paddy the Baddy at the moment are their cash cows in terms of like they're massive.
Yeah.
They do massive numbers. So I would imagine they don't want to put Sean O'Malley in there with Jack Shaw just yet. They might though. I talked about like the disrespect. They might think that Sean O'Malley will, go in there and win. I don't know. So that could be a massive fight for Jack to face Sean O'Malley. But I think he's 12th, so they'll probably look at 15th, 14th, 13th. So you've got Ricky Simone. Marlon Moraes could be an interesting one. He dropped 4 places in the rankings due to a couple of losses.
Yeah,
be a tough fight that on paper. And then you got Rafael Asenko. Any of those pop out for you, mate?
Yeah, any of those really.
Or Frankie Edgar at 11.
I mean, that'd be nice. I think Frank Edgar's really fading out as well, isn't he? I think his chin's gone. I think he's still, from what I hear, he still has aspirations to be champion, which is to behold for his enthusiasm, but I can't help but think his chin's gone, you know. I think he could always be doing great in any fight up until he gets clipped. And, you know, at some point in a fight, you're going to get clipped. Don't you think he's just getting knocked out a little bit too easy these days? And I worry for him. You know, he really fermented an incredible legacy of his achievements, and I just don't want it being tarred by staying in there too long.
Of course, yeah. I would love to see Jack fight Frankie Edgar. I think that's a statement-making fight for him. But
Yeah.
I think he's more likely to face a Senko, Moraes, or Ricky Simone.
Yeah, any of those really.
Honestly, I think Jack beats all three of those.
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of looking at the names above, like O'Malley. Edgar.
I actually think the fight he had was more dangerous than some of those stylistically for him.
Yeah, interesting. I noticed Bryce Mitchell's right behind Arnold Allen in the rankings, which is quite an interesting little thing. Just he's right behind him.
I would want to see that more if either of them become a champion before the other. Then I would want to see that.
There's like an undercurrent of young talent, isn't there?
Yeah,
when they get to champions, they've all got these big fights lined up. Just to finish us off tonight, mate. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman is on. I don't think they've officially announced the date, but it is on. Dana White mentioned that Leon Edwards is getting his shot finally, about bloody time.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's on the back. He beat Nate Diaz and beat everyone else. Do you think he's going to win the title?
I want him to win. I just can't be confident enough to say, oh, yeah, you know, in all honesty, I can't just say, oh, yeah, he's going to be. He's got the capability to beat Usman, but Usman has been looking
unstoppable. Do you know what I find interesting about it, mate? Apart from the obvious, the battle between the two is the winner, in my opinion. Again, I think the winner of Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman will face Conor McGregor. Can you imagine Leon Edwards versus Conor McGregor at UFC Manchester or whatever they end up doing? That will be something truly special to behold. Now, I'm not saying, that Leon Edwards will beat Kamaru Usman. I want him to, of course, but Kamaru Usman is next level. And I think Kamaru Usman will beat Conor McGregor quite easily.
Too easily, yeah.
I think Leon Edwards versus Conor McGregor in England or in Britain or in Ireland is just mouth-watering. The atmosphere, just everything about it would be unbelievable. But there's been a lot of talk of Conor McGregor fighting for that welterweight title in his next fight. I don't know how. Like, to me, he should have it. They should put him against someone in the top 5 first, whether it's Bell Muhammad, Stephen Thompson, Luque, Colby Covington, even like Gilbert Burns. One of them should fight McGregor first.
With what's happened with him, I'd much rather see him fight someone like Masvidal. You know,
I'd rather see McGregor these days fight Masvidal, fight Nate Diaz.
A battle of personalities, not just the fact that they've got legit talent, but they've just slightly off from their peak. And
do you know what could be interesting is if Conor McGregor keeps losing, winning. So he's like up and down. His star's still bright, but he's not, elite level. Is if Paddy keeps winning, like I feel like they will do that fight. That's like ready made for him, isn't it?
That would be almost like the joining of two eras, wouldn't it?
Conor McGregor's retirement fight, maybe.
Yeah, possibly
in Ireland versus the Scouse man. There's so many unbelievable fights.
Insane draw. That would be an insane draw.
So, what do you think? What do you think is a bigger fight? Conor McGregor retirement fight in a few years, UFC Dublin versus Paddy the Baddy, or Leon Edwards versus Conor McGregor for the welterweight title in 6 months' time at UFC Manchester?
Paddy Pimblett, because of the extreme personalities that they come forward with. You know, they're just
2 extreme followings as well, both of them.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the Irish are very, very patriotic to themselves, and so are the Liverpudlians. So, oh man, that would just
it's like a race at the moment, though, mate, isn't it? all these British fighters, who's going to get a title first?
Yeah.
Like, you've got Leon Edwards, you've got Arnold Allen, you've got Tom Aspinall, then you've got Jack Shaw, Paddy Pimblett, and these guys lower down who are really pushing on. It's like, who's going to be the first British fighter to get the title since Michael Bisping?
UK and Ireland, we're really making an impact now.
And that's we're forgetting.
People are going to take us serious.
Sorry, who's that? Who's the Irish? Not Paul Hughes. What's his name? Ian Gary has obviously made his UFC debut impressively as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of names in there. It's going to be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 2 hours and 5 minutes of UFC Cage Warriors, a little interview with our guest. Danny, as ever, it's been a pleasure. We will be back to Sundays next week.
Can I just say, Sti, before we wrap it up, just quickly, happy birthday to my son, and I believe it was your son's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to him. I also had 4 fighters fight on the Saturday night as well. 3 of them pro, 1 of them amateur. Unfortunately, amateur lost due to a leg injury. Couldn't come out after the first round, unfortunately. It was a suspected broken foot, but it wasn't broken, so he's going to be okay. Hayley Valentine notching up her second win.
Go on, Hales.
Yeah, she looked really, really dominant on the ground and got a referee stoppage in round 2. We had Nick Hayes, got dropped on his ass in the literally first few seconds. Really touch and go, but switched up those tactics and strategies and turned it into a grapple fest and just wrestle screwed the guy for 2 rounds. So what a comeback, and knocked up his first win as a pro, being that he lost his first outing. So I'm so happy for him. And I won't even say this guy. I'll call him Stanley. Stan. He's got a foreign name. I can't even begin to pronounce it. Stan had an absolute war against one of London Shoot Fighters guys. And London Shoot, as you know, top tier gym, really is. Been on the world stage for many years. And we've been competitive with them many times. And this was another one that was truly epic. But well done, Stanley, on an absolute war of a performance. Both of those fighters, I mean, it deserved to be on a main event on a show. It really did. They both left the part of their souls in there. So I just want to congratulate really the fighters and the coaches and the whole team that helped get all these guys together, because without it, we truly don't have nothing. And everyone should be giving themselves a pat on the back. And indeed, when I get back to the gym tomorrow, when I start back training, I'll be patting them on the back, and everyone's made me so proud.
Good stuff. Well in, the peeps. Well in, Danny. And we'll be back next week with another guest from the world of combat sports, probably Ben Doherty as well. So do join us. This Tuesday, my story with Welsh boxer Jay Munn, and it is a belter. See you then. Shut up.
Well done, son.